In the 10 hours I've spent with Flatout VR Total Insanity, which isn't to be confused by the other Flatout VR game, which as of right now is still in the works and said to be an entirely new game made up of the very best that the Flatout series has to offer. But today we're talking about Flatout 4, which is a VR remake of the original game, and you seriously wouldn't know this wasn't a true VR game right from the start. The level of effort that's gone into this one is actually staggering, and I know some of you watching this are into VR modding with UEVR and community mods, but Flatout VR is exactly the sort of leveled up example we need to prove that when you combine excellent flat screen games with VR magic, the end result is a game with seriously impressive graphics, fantastic physics with debris flying all over the place, satisfying explosions, great sounding cars, a brilliant sense of speed, hours of content, multiplayer, all sorts of crazy challenges, tracks with multiple layouts, and AI competitors that constantly challenge you, making every race never the same thing twice. And now I'm going to say something I've never said before on the channel, but this is so far my VR game of the year for 2026. I do have some negatives, as you would expect, especially since Flatout VR is in early access, which has led to some frustrations, but I'm telling you right now, if you have loved any of the games from the Burnout series, Destruction Derby 1 and 2 on the original PlayStation, and even Mario Kart, because this game has a racing mode with weapons, Flatout 4 has actually reignited my hope for the future of VR gaming. This is a shining beacon of hope that at some point in the future, VR will indeed rub shoulders with flat screen games, because what we have here is a great game made even better thanks to VR. Well, now that's all off my chest, let's get into some details because this is meant to be a review. So in terms of controls, you can play this game using VR controllers like a gamepad, which I think works really well. You can also physically hold the virtual steering wheel, meaning your arms are just stuck out in front of you all the time, and personally this was my least favourite way of playing the game. And then you can use physical steering wheels, and I have a Logitech G29. It has pedal support and manual shifter support, but the steering wheel felt absolutely fantastic. The force feedback was brilliant. But something I did see on the official X account was full hand IK is coming pretty soon, so that could be pretty cool for some people to try. And going back to using the physical steering wheel, I wish I would have done this sooner. Once you map your recentering button to the steering wheel and adjust your steering wheel sensitivity, I have one of the best home arcade racing experiences ever. And graphically, even on the highest settings, Flatout VR doesn't really push my 5070 Ti or any of my PC resources for that matter, which I was pleasantly surprised about. And the inclusion of DLSS definitely helps, and for me it wasn't about the frame rates, it was actually removing the jaggies from the image. And overall, if you can put everything on the highest settings and then mess around with the resolution slider, which I think I ended up leaving it on like 1.2 or 1.3, what you're left with is a seriously impressive game, especially when you're going at full speed, because there's just carnage going on all around you. Plus this game has weather effects that genuinely make it hard to see where you're going unless you're out in front. And I love the lack of rubber banding of the racing. If you are at the back, it can be genuinely difficult to catch up to first place. But since the AI are always trying to take each other out, not just you, don't be too quick to hit the restart button of a race, because this game's racing is super unpredictable. The tracks themselves do take time to learn, and even then, there's no guarantee the AI will let you take a certain path. The career mode has 3 different categories with different classes, and in terms of content, I do have one negative, and that is after 10 hours, I was getting a bit of track fatigue. But again, I am telling you that I played for 10 hours, so it's not really anything to moan about. Below career, you have the Flatout mode, which brings a whole new perspective to the game, and this is filled with many different cars and challenges, including the Stunt mode, which is absolutely addictive. And on top of that, you have multiplayer. I want to give a quick shout out to Gaming Scorpio, because thanks to him, I got to play at least a couple of hours of multiplayer to give you my thoughts on it. And even though the racing is great online, it's the Destruction Derby mode that really made me smile. I could honestly just play this with people for hours. Now I do have a couple more negatives to go through. The virtual steering wheel when you're in cockpit mode sometimes freezes for a few seconds, even though the steering remains unaffected. Getting gold on some of the challenges randomly would lock me out of the game, which means I just had to do a restart, and multiplayer names are rendered currently incorrectly, which made them honestly terrible to look at in VR. But all of this feedback is already with the developers, and they have already dropped an update while I've been writing this review. There's one other thing that might cause players some confusion, is the in-game menus, because because as of right now you can use an in-game sort of laser pointer and also your controllers to navigate the menus like a gamepad. But if you just so happen to point at the menu and try and use a controller, they actually cancel each other out rather than complement each other. So you basically have to make a choice. You either point the controllers away from the menus and use the joysticks, or you use the in-game VR pointer. It's not a big deal, but when I mentioned this to everyone in the multiplayer mode, they all said at first it was a little bit confusing. So on to my summary. Flatout 4 VR Total Insanity costs $20, which is actually less than I expected for the amount of content in this game and the quality of this game. I think this is a must-buy game on PCVR. And we have the PSVR 2 version coming after the full release on the PC version, which is exactly the right thing to do, versus releasing multiple versions of a game on multiple platforms with none of them finished. And when it does release on PSVR 2, I fully expect to start seeing everyone's top 10 PSVR 2 games lists get a new entry. This is a seriously good racing game and I highly recommend it. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.